America is known for its open highways, vast landscapes, and iconic landmarks. But beneath the surface, there's another side. A side few have dared to understand, and even fewer have lived to tell about. Tonight, you're about to hear 10 of the scariest real horror stories from across the United States. Stories that will leave you questioning everything you know about safety, comfort, and what's hiding just outside your view. You'll hear about the places you should never go, the things you should never ignore, and the people who learned that too late. These aren't ghost stories or campfire tales. These are events that left marks on the world, marks that can still be felt today. So, if you think you're ready, sit back, because once you start hearing these stories, there's no turning back. The line between the known and the unknown is thinner than you think. Clinton Road, New Jersey, a name that sends chills down your spine. It's not just a road, it's a legend whispered about in hushed tones, a place where the brave go to test their courage and come back shaken. I'm Jake, a college kid who thought I was untouchable. At 6'5" and 260 pounds, I was the manly man of my friend group, scoffing at ghost stories about haunted bridges and phantom trucks. But one night, my buddies dragged me to Clinton Road, promising a thrill I'd never forget. They'd gone the night before, freaking out about coins tossed at Ghost Boy Bridge coming back. I didn't believe them. I should have. Because that night, under a moonless sky, Clinton Road didn't just scare me. It showed me fear like I'd never known. This is my story, and it starts with a dare. Clinton Road stretches through the heart of North Jersey's wilderness, a 10-mile ribbon of asphalt flanked by towering pines and forgotten houses. It's infamous, the kind of place locals avoid after dark, where stories of ghostly children and cursed trucks linger like fog. My friends had explored it the night before, coming back with wild tales of coins returning at Ghost Boy Bridge and a ghost truck chasing them. I thought they were exaggerating, maybe pulling my leg because I'd missed out. So we decided to go the next night, and this time I'd see it for myself. We piled into Joe's sports car, me, Joe, Hannah, and Mark. The 2-hour drive from South Jersey gave us plenty of time to get hyped up and spooked. Hannah read aloud from a website about Clinton Road's dark past. A boy drowning under the bridge, bodies hidden by a serial killer, whispers of a woman in white. I cracked jokes to keep things light, but the closer we got, the heavier the air. Felt like the woods were pressing in on us. Our first stop was a bizarre sight. A small, castle-like building, crumbling and overgrown, sitting just off the road. It looked out of place, like a relic from a forgotten fairy tale. We all needed to pee, so I went left. Joe went straight, Mark went right, and Hannah stayed by the car. I was finishing up when Joe's shout echoed through the trees. He stumbled back, swearing I'd been behind the castle, waving him over. My blood ran cold. I hadn't moved. Hannah and Mark confirmed it. No one had been near the castle. Joe's face was ashen, his eyes darting to the shadows. We tried to laugh it off, blaming the creepy vibe, but my confidence was slipping. The castle's empty windows seemed to stare, and the silence of the woods felt wrong, like something was listening. We climbed back into the car, hearts racing, and headed for Ghost Boy Bridge. I told myself it was just a prank, but deep down, I knew. Clinton Road was waking up, and we were in its sights. Ghost Boy Bridge loomed ahead, a rusted skeleton of steel over a sluggish creek, its waters black under the starless sky. The legend was simple, but chilling. A boy drowned here years ago, and if you tossed a coin into the creek, he'd throw it back. We pulled up to the bridge, and I checked everyone's pockets for coins to make sure no one was pranking me. I wasn't about to let them fake this and laugh at my expense. Hannah clutched a quarter, her knuckles white. "Jake, what if it's true?" she asked, her voice trembling. I forced a grin, but my heart was pounding. The air felt thick, like the woods were holding their breath. We all tossed our coins into the creek below. Nothing happened. I exhaled, ready to call it a bust. See? Just a ghost story for kids. But as we turned to leave, a sharp clink froze us in place. We spun around. There on the road were our coins, glinting under the moonlight. My stomach dropped. "No way," Mark whispered, his voice barely audible. I marched over, snatching up a quarter. It was cold, slick with creek water, impossible to fake. "You guys did this," I said, but my voice wavered. Joe shook his head, eyes wide. "Jake, we didn't touch them." I wasn't convinced. I grabbed another coin, scrawled my initials on it with a pen, and held it up. One more time, no tricks. I tossed it into the water, waited 5 minutes in silence, and heard nothing. The creek was still, the night eerily quiet. "Told you," I said, forcing a laugh, but then clink. My blood ran cold as I walked back to the road. There it was, my coin with my initials lying in the dirt. I picked it up, my hands shaking. It was wet, fresh from the creek. I'd seen it sink. The bridge felt alive now, the air humming with a low, unnatural buzz. Hannah grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Jake, we need to go now." My eyes darted to the creek where ripples spread across the surface. No wind, no cause. In the shadows beneath the bridge, I swore I saw a flicker, like eyes catching the light. Not human, something else. We scrambled for the car, the buzz growing louder, vibrating in our chests. Joe fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking. As the engine roared, headlights blazed behind us. Out of nowhere, an old truck lights appeared, closing in fast. No engine noise, no visible body, just blinding beams tearing through the dark. Joe slammed the gas, the car lurching forward as we sped down the winding road. The truck kept pace, its lights flooding the rear view mirror. I glanced back, expecting a grill or a driver. Nothing, just light, relentless, and wrong. "Go faster!" Hannah screamed. Joe pushed the car to its limit, tires screeching on sharp curves. My heart pounded as we rounded a bend, the truck inches from our bumper. Then, without warning, its lights vanished. Gone, like they'd never existed. We pulled over, gasping for air. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the rustle of leaves. Mark pulled out his phone, his hands trembling as he read from a forum. "It's the ghost truck," he said. "They say it hunts drivers on Dead Man's Curve, trying to force them off the road." Dead Man's Curve was just ahead. My bravado was gone, replaced by a gnawing dread. This wasn't a prank. Clinton Road was playing with us, and we were out of our depth. As we caught our breath, a new sound pierced the night. A low, guttural moan from the woods. My skin prickled. We froze, our headlights catching a figure. A woman in a white dress, standing just beyond the trees. Her head was tilted, her eyes hidden in shadow. Then she screamed, a sound so raw, so piercing it felt like it clawed into my soul. We screamed back, piling into the car and peeling out. Joe didn't stop until we reached the highway, the woman's scream echoing in our minds. The highway's glow felt like salvation, but Clinton Road's shadow clung to us. Joe's hands trembled on the wheel, and Hannah was silent, her eyes fixed on the road behind us. Mark kept muttering about the Iceman, the serial killer whose victims were rumored to haunt these woods. I tried to shake the woman's scream from my head, but it lingered, sharp and raw. My tough guy act was crumbling. I'd laughed off ghosts, but what we'd seen wasn't human. We stopped at a gas station to catch our breath, the fluorescent lights harsh against the night. The clerk, a tired-looking guy in his 40s, barely glanced at us as we bought coffee and snacks. I noticed a faded newspaper clipping taped to the counter. Clinton Road Mysteries Persist, 1983. It mentioned the ghost truck, the boy under the bridge, and a woman in white blamed for unexplained accidents. My stomach twisted. This was real. Back in the car, we sat in silence, the weight of the night pressing down. The road had felt alive, like it was watching us. Hannah finally spoke, her voice small. What was she, that woman? I didn't have an answer. Mark pulled up another article on his phone, his voice shaky as he read. Locals believe the woman in white is tied to a 19th century tragedy. A mother who lost her child and wanders Clinton Road, searching. The words hit hard. Was she looking for us? Joe started the car, eager to leave this cursed place behind. But as we pulled onto the highway, the air grew heavy again, like a storm about to break. The truck's headlights flared behind us, closer than before. No sound, no shape, just those blinding beams, relentless and unnatural. Joe cursed, flooring the gas. The car roared, but the truck matched us, its lights filling the rearview mirror with an eerie glow. I glanced back, my heart racing. Nothing, just light, chasing us through the dark. Joe, don't stop, Hannah screamed. We were nearing Dead Man's Curve, the infamous bend where the truck was said to claim its victims. The forum had warned about it. Drivers forced off the road, crashing into the trees. My mind raced. Was this how it ended? Trapped in a ghost story we'd mocked? Joe took the curve at breakneck speed, tires screeching. The truck's lights flickered, then vanished, leaving us in darkness. We didn't stop, didn't speak, just kept driving until the woods gave way to civilization. But the relief was short-lived. As we passed a rusted sign for Clinton Road, that moan returned, low, guttural, coming from the trees. We froze, our headlights catching her again, the woman in the white dress, standing just beyond the trees. Her head was tilted, her eyes hidden, but I felt her stare, cold and unyielding. Then she screamed again, louder, more desperate, a sound that tore through us. We screamed back, piling into the car and peeling out. Joe didn't look back, didn't slow down. Not until we were miles away, the city lights a faint promise of safety. My hands were shaking, my mind replaying her face, her scream, the coins. Clinton Road wasn't just a road, it was a trap, and we'd walked right into it. We pulled into a diner, the kind of place that never closes, to process what had happened. The waitress, an older woman with tired eyes, noticed our shaken state. "You kids okay?" she asked. I hesitated, then mentioned Clinton Road. Her face hardened. "You're lucky you made it out," she said. "That place, it doesn't let everyone go." She didn't elaborate, but her words stuck with me. A warning rooted in years of local lore. Back in South Jersey, we tried to move on, but Clinton Road had changed us. The coins, the truck, that woman, they weren't just stories anymore. They were real, etched into our minds. We swore never to talk about that night again, but the silence was worse. Every creak in my dorm, every shadow outside my window felt like her, watching. I dug into Clinton Road's history, desperate for answers. The Iceman was real, his crimes documented in old police reports. The ghost truck and Dead Man's Curve were mentioned in local papers, blamed for countless wrecks. But the woman in white? She was a mystery. Some said a grieving mother, others a vengeful spirit tied to the land. Every account ended the same. Those who saw her never forgot her. I'll never go back to Clinton Road. It's not just the fear, it's the feeling that we'd crossed a line, stepped into something ancient and unforgiving. I used to think I was untouchable, too big to be scared. But that night taught me something. No one's bigger than the unknown. Clinton Road doesn't just scare you, it marks you, and its shadow follows you home. Stay away. Trust me. The door locks with a sharp click, and my blood runs cold. I'm trapped in a stranger's house deep in the Greek mountains, miles from help. The man, about 60, with greasy hair, missing teeth, and a nose speckled with blackheads, stares at me, his eyes cold and unyielding. My backpack feels heavier than ever. My phone useless without a signal. Just hours ago, I was a 20-year-old from Finland, hitchhiking through Kamata, my sign pleading for Athens. The sun scorched my skin as cars sped by, until his battered white car screeched to a halt. He didn't speak English, just grunted Sparta and motioned for me to get in. His gaze felt like a warning, but the road was empty, and I was desperate. I climbed in, not knowing I'd stepped into a nightmare. The car smelled of stale cigarettes and something sour. I tried to talk, but the language barrier was a wall. He offered a cigarette. I refused, and he lit one, smoke curling around his weathered face. His hands, calloused and stained, gripped the wheel tightly, a faded scar snaking across his knuckles. Outside, fields gave way to shadowed hills, trees closing in like silent guards. My phone showed no bars, and a knot tightened in my gut. He hummed a low, grating tune, his voice scraping my nerves. I caught him glancing at me, his eyes lingering too long, and I shifted, clutching my backpack, my only lifeline. After 6 kilometers, he swerved onto a dirt path, stopping at a small house on a rocky slope, surrounded by sheep and a dog lying in the sun. He signaled for me to follow him inside, his face unreadable. The air inside was thick with mildew, old photos lining the walls, faces frozen, some torn. The edges. He led me to a balcony, the mountains looming like a trap. I typed into Google Translate, "Why aren't we going to Sparta?" He typed back, "Sleep here, Sparta tomorrow." My stomach dropped. I typed, "I need to leave now," but his eyes narrowed, his breath reeking of tobacco. The dog outside growled, a low menace. I spotted a coil of rope in the corner, its ends frayed, and my pulse raced. The photos seemed to watch me, their eyes accusing. A faint creak came from the ceiling like footsteps, but the man didn't flinch. My mind screamed, "Danger!" I glanced at the door, calculating my odds. The rope, the photos, his stare. Everything felt wrong. Who was this man? What did he want? And why did this house feel like a cage I might never leave? I stand on the balcony, the mountain air biting my skin. The man's cigarette glows, casting shadows across his lined face. My phone is useless, no signal to save me. I type again, "I need to go to Sparta or Athens today." His smirk chills me as he types, "Stay. Safe here." Safe? This place is a trap. I scan the room, spotting a locked drawer, its key glinting nearby. My heart thumps. What's he hiding? The dog outside paces, its growls sharp. I nod, faking calm, but my mind races for an escape. He offered me food or a shower, but I refused, my voice firm. He shrugs, pointing to a chair inside, his gesture more command than invitation. I hesitate, eyeing the dirt path, too far, too exposed. The house creaks as I step in, floorboards groaning. The photos on the walls stare, some frames scratched as if clawed. A low hum vibrates through the walls like a distant machine. The man shuffles to a back room, leaving me alone. I edge toward the drawer, my hands trembling as I grab the key. The lock clicks open, revealing a stack of IDs. Passports, driver's licenses, all young men, their faces hauntingly familiar. My breath catches. Hitchhikers? A crumpled note slips out, scrawled in English. "Get out!" The hum grows louder. A pulsing throb, and I slam the drawer shut, my pulse hammering. The man returns, his eyes locking onto the key in my hand. He barks something in Greek, stepping closer. his shadow swallowing the light. I back toward the door, saying, "I need to leave." He moves fast, locking the door with a loud click, his bulk blocking my path. The hum stops, the silence suffocating. I gesture to the road, pleading, but he stares, his blackhead-riddled nose inches from my face. The IDs flash in my mind. How many never left? My stomach twists. Is he a predator? A thief? Worse? A loud crash erupts from the back room like glass, shattering. The man's head snaps toward it, his grip on the key loosening. I lunge for the door, my fingers scrabbling at the lock. It jams and he grabs my arm, his nails digging in. In a surge of panic, he reaches for my crotch, his hand a claw. I scream no and swing my fist, hitting his cheek. He stumbles and I kick the door, wood splintering. I burst outside, the dog barking wildly as I sprint down the path, the note's warning searing my brain. Get out. The IDs, the hum, the crash. What was he planning? I don't look back, but his gaze burns into me. A predator denied his prey. I tear down the dirt path, my lungs burning. The man's shouts fading into the wind. The olive trees loom, their branches twisting like claws. My backpack slams against my spine, but I don't stop. The dog's barks grow faint, replaced by a heavy silence that presses against my chest. I hit the main road, gasping, and glance back. The house is a dark speck, but I swear a shadow lingers in the doorway, watching. My skin crawls. I need to move fast. The road stretches empty, the sun sinking, casting blood-red streaks across the hills. My legs wobble, but I keep walking, the IDs haunting me. Those faces, those lives. Were they all hitchhikers too trusting like me? My stomach churns. I need a ride, but after that house, every car feels like a trap. I grip my backpack, my only anchor in this nightmare. Headlights pierce the dusk, a van rumbling closer. I wave, desperate, and it slows. A middle-aged couple sits inside, their faces kind but guarded. "Sparta?" I ask, my voice hoarse. The woman nods and I climb into the back, the seats worn but comforting. The van lurches forward and I exhale, relief flooding me. But as we drive, I notice the man's hands, tense, knuckles white. The gi. Woman glances at me in the rearview mirror, her eyes flickering with something unsettling. My pulse quickens. Am I safe? Or did I just trade one danger for another? The van winds through the mountains, the road curving sharply. I catch the couple whispering, their voices low, urgent. The woman pulls out a phone, typing quickly, and I strain to hear. A word slips out. Kamada. My heart skips. Are they talking about me? I lean forward, pretending to adjust my backpack, and glimpse the phone screen. A message. He's with us. My blood runs cold. Who's he? Me? I scan the van, spotting a folded knife in the door pocket, its blade glinting. My fingers itch to grab it, but I stay still, my mind racing. The van slows, pulling onto a side road. The couple falls silent, the air thick with tension. "Sparta?" I ask, my voice steady despite the fear. The man grunts, pointing ahead, but the road is dark, flanked by dense trees. This isn't right. I grip my backpack, my heart pounding. The woman turns, her smile forced. "Shortcut," she says, but her eyes betray her. I glance at the knife, calculating. If this goes wrong, I'm ready. The van stops and the man turns, his gaze heavy. "Get out," he says, his voice low. I don't wait. I bolt from the van, sprinting into the trees, their shouts echoing behind me. The knife, the message, their eyes. Were they working with him? I crash through the underbrush, realizing I've escaped one predator only to stumble into another's web. I plunge through the trees, branches slashing my arms, my breath ragged. The couple's words, "He's with us," echo in my skull. My backpack snags on a thorn, but I rip it free, driven by fear. The forest is a maze, shadows twisting in the moonlight, every rustle a threat. I trip over a root, hitting the ground hard, my hands scraping dirt. I freeze, listening. Footsteps crunch in the distance, deliberate, closing in. My heart hammers. Are they the man's allies? Part of a network preying on hitchhikers? I scramble up, clutching my backpack, and run. The trees thin, revealing a narrow trail. I follow, it praying for a road. But the footsteps grow louder, joined by a low whistle. A signal. My skin prickles. I duck behind a boulder, my chest heaving, and peer out. Two figures move through the trees, their silhouettes bulky, one holding something long. A stick? My stomach lurches. They're hunting me, and they're not alone. A third figure, smaller, trails behind. The woman? Their movements are coordinated, practiced. This isn't random. They planned this. I crawl along the boulder, hands shaking, and spot a ditch choked with leaves. I slide into it, covering myself with debris, my breath shallow. The footsteps stop nearby, and I hear a man's voice, gruff, speaking Greek. Another answers, closer, saying, "O Xenos." The stranger, me. My blood runs cold. They're searching, their boots scuffing dirt inches from my hiding spot. I clench my fists, ready to fight, but I'm outnumbered. The IDs flash in my mind. How many hid like this, waiting for the end? A twig snaps, and I stifle a gasp. A flashlight beam sweeps over the ditch, grazing the leaves above me. I press. Deeper, dirt caking my face. The light lingers, then moves on, the voice is fading. I wait, counting seconds, until silence returns. I crawl out, body aching, and scan the trail. It's clear, for now. I sprint toward a faint glow, praying it's a road. The forest opens, and I stumble onto asphalt, headlights flashing. A truck. Slows, an older man at the wheel, his face lined but kind. "Sparta," I croak. He nods, and I climb in, hands trembling. The truck rumbles forward, the driver silent. I glance back, expecting the couple, but the road is empty. My mind churns. Were they working with the man? Was Kamata a trap for hitchhikers? The driver's radio crackles. A news report in Greek mentioning missing tourists. My heart sinks. I grip my backpack. The IDs wait, heavy in my memory. The driver looks at me, eyes soft but probing. "You okay?" he asks in broken English. I nod, but I'm not. I escaped, but the fear clings, a shadow I can't shake. How many others are still out there, running, lost? The truck hums along the highway. The driver's silence a small comfort. My hands shake, the IDs, the hunters. The man's claw-like grip burned into my mind. I realized I'd been too trusting, lulled by past rides that went well. But Kamata changed me. I still love hitchhiking, but now I'm cautious, my eyes sharper. We reach Sparta at dawn. The city's lights a fragile promise of safety. The driver drops me at a bus station saying, "Be careful." I nod, unable to speak, and buy a ticket to Athens, my fingers fumbling. On the bus, I sink into a seat, but rest eludes me. Every shadow feels alive, every stranger a threat. I check my backpack, finding a stray receipt from Kamata. It's ink, smudged. My heart skips. Did I pick it up or was it planted? A reminder of how close I came to vanishing. In Athens, I find a hostel, the hot shower failing to wash away the fear. The IDs' faces haunt me, their smiles frozen. I search online. For Kamata, finding reports of missing travelers, cases unsolved, families left wondering. One article notes a pattern. Young men hitchhiking, last seen near remote villages. My stomach knots. Was I nearly one of them? The man's house, the couple's van, the hunters. Were they part of a network preying on the trusting? The thought chills me, a truth I can't unsee. Back in Finland, the road still calls, but I'm different. I hitchhike, craving freedom. But my eyes scan every driver, every glance. I keep a knife in my pack, not for violence, but for peace of mind. I tell no one about Kamata. Not friends, not family. How could they grasp the terror of being prey? At night I check my locks, the hum from that house echoing in my dreams. I'm safe, but the fear is a scar, a reminder of what I survived. This isn't just a bad ride. It's a warning etched in my soul. Trust your gut. It sees what your eyes said. The road is freedom, but it's a gamble, where monsters wear human faces. Kamata taught me to heed that voice, the one that screamed run when I climbed into that car. I'm stronger now, sharper, but I'll never forget those IDs, those lives cut short. They're why I keep moving, to honor them, to defy the predators who thought they could break me. A question gnaws at me in the dark. Is he still out there, that man with the blackhead-riddled nose waiting for the next hitchhiker? Are the couple and their hunters still watching the roads, their knives glinting? I escaped, but Kamata is one dot on a vast map. How many others are running tonight, unaware of the eyes on them? Will you trust the next ride, or walk away knowing what's waiting in the silence? The first time Sadie struck, I was 12, standing alone in the school bathroom, staring at my reflection. A wad of wet paper towels hit the back of my head, followed by her cold, mocking laugh. I turned, but she was already gone, her clicks, giggles fading down the hall. That laugh haunted my dreams, a signal that my life was no longer my own. Her name was Sadie, and she wasn't just a bully. She was a force of destruction, tearing through my middle school years like a storm I couldn't escape. Every day I braced for her next move, wondering how far she'd go to break me. This isn't just a story about bullying. It's about surviving a predator who seemed to know my every fear, and the chilling moment I realized she'd never stop, unless I made her. My name is Jamie, and I was a plus-sized kid at the time. A scaredy cat, gullible, and a bit of a pushover. Growing up in a small town, our middle school was a pressure cooker, fed by 3 elementary schools and connected to the high school by a dim, echoing tunnel. It was the kind of place where reputations were made or broken in a single glance. I just wanted to get through the day, keep my grades up, and avoid trouble. But trouble found me. Sadie was the stereotypical mean girl, loved fashion, had a gaggle of friends willing to do her bidding, and every guy was into her. She walked the halls like she owned them, her sharp eyes scanning for weakness. And she found it in me. It started with whispers. She started rumors about me, talking about me online. I didn't have social media yet, so I didn't find out until much later. I'd hear snickers in class, catch kids staring as I walked by. Then came the pranks. She said things and threw things at me, from her garbage to one of her textbooks. A half-eaten apple once landed in my lunch tray, followed by her voice from across the cafeteria. "Oops, my bad, Jamie." Her friends howled, and I shrank into my seat, cheeks burning. I told myself it was just kids being kids. I told myself it would stop. But Sadie wasn't playing a game. She was waging a war. Tried to fight back in my own quiet way. I tried dozens of times to tell teachers, guidance counselors, even the principal. But they didn't care. Their responses were like slaps in the face. When I had gotten my backpack thrown down the stairs and a calculator inside that I brought from home got broken, they said, "It's your property problem." When Sadie had written a fat joke alongside a slur on my locker door in permanent marker, they said, "You have no evidence that it was her." When Sadie's boy toy and his friends cornered me outside the changing rooms for gym, they said they were probably just kidding around. The school was a fortress of indifference and I was on my own. Sadie's attacks grew sharper, more personal. One day, I found a note taped to my desk. "You're nothing, Jamie, and you'll always be nothing." The words were written in her precise, looping handwriting, the kind that made my stomach twist. I tore it up, but the message lingered, sinking into my bones. I started seeing her everywhere, leaning against a locker, watching me from the bleachers, her silhouette in the crowd. Was she really there, or was my mind playing tricks? The fear was a constant weight, pressing down until I could barely breathe. I'd check over my shoulder in empty hallways, convinced I heard her footsteps. At home, I'd lock my door, half expecting to see her face at my window. But there was something else about Sadie, something that set her apart from the usual bullies. She didn't just want to humiliate me, she wanted to control me. Her eyes held a hunger, a need to see me crumble. I'd catch her staring in class, not with anger, but with a strange, almost gleeful intensity. It was as if my pain fueled her, as if she was feeding on my fear. And the more I tried to disappear, the more relentless she became. I started to wonder, why me? What did she see in me that made her so determined to destroy me? And what would happen if she succeeded? By the end of 7th grade, I was a shadow of myself. Almost daily, I had been chased in the halls, ganged up on in the bathrooms, had my food stolen, gotten blamed by the teachers for their dumb actions in class. My grades slipped, my confidence shattered. I'd lie awake at night, replaying every taunt, every shove, every moment I'd failed to stand up to her. But in that darkness, a tiny spark of anger flickered. I was tired of being her victim. I didn't know how, but I swore I'd find a way to fight back. Little did I know that decision would set me on a collision course with Sadie, one that would change us both forever. Every morning I'd stand at my bedroom window, scanning the street for Sadie's shadow. I knew it was irrational. She couldn't be there, could she? But her presence clung to me like damp air, seeping into every corner of my life. One day, I found my gym bag slashed open, my clothes spilling out like guts. Her laughter rang out from the locker room, but when I stormed in, she was gone. How did she do it? How was she always one step ahead? That's when I realized Sadie wasn't just tormenting me. She was stalking me, studying me, turning my world into her twisted playground. And the scariest part? I had no idea how far she'd go. The attacks became a daily ritual. Almost daily, I had been chased in the halls, ganged up on in the bathrooms, had my food stolen, gotten blamed by the teachers for their dumb actions in class. I'd sprint through the halls, her click's footsteps pounding behind me, their taunts slicing through the air. In the bathroom, they'd corner me, shoving me against the tiles while Sadie watched, her arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips. My lunch tray was a frequent casualty. Sandwiches tossed to the floor, milk cartons crushed under her heels. And the teachers? They'd scold me for causing a scene as if I'd chosen this hell. I started mapping her patterns, desperate for a way to survive. Sadie was meticulous, striking when I was most vulnerable, between classes, in crowded halls, during gym when the coach was distracted. But she was also unpredictable. One day, I found a photo of myself taped to my locker, my face scribbled over with black marker. The word loser was scrawled across my forehead. I ripped it down, my hands shaking, but her voice floated over my shoulder. "You can't erase me, Jamie." I spun around, but the hallway was empty. Was she real? Or was I losing my mind? The fear was a living thing now, coiling tighter with every passing day. I tried to fight back in small ways. I'd take different routes to class, hide in the library during lunch, even skip gym to avoid her. But Sadie was relentless. Summer could not come fast enough that year, and by the time the 7th grade was over, they let those kids get away with so much that I honestly gave up on trying to get outside help. I was exhausted, my spirit worn thin. At home, I'd collapse into bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever escape her. My parents noticed I was quieter, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them. How do you explain a monster who looks like a teenage girl? But Sadie's obsession was growing darker. One afternoon, I was walking home when I heard footsteps behind me. I sped up, my heart racing, but the sound kept pace. I glanced back, and there she was, Sadie, 50 feet away, her head tilted, watching me. She didn't wave, didn't call out, she just stared, her eyes boring into me. I broke into a run, ducking into an alley, my breath ragged. When I looked back, she was gone. But that night I found a crumpled note under my front door. I'm always watching. The handwriting was hers. I locked my door, my hands trembling, and didn't sleep. The worst came during a school assembly. I was sitting in the back trying to blend into the crowd when I felt a prickling on the back of my neck. I turned, and there she was, 3 rows behind me, staring. Not blinking, not moving, just staring. The air felt thick, suffocating. I bolted from the auditorium, ignoring the teacher's shouts, and hid in a stairwell. But as I caught my breath, I heard her voice, soft and taunting. "You can't run forever, Jamie." The stairwell was empty. My blood ran cold. Was she toying with me, or was something deeper at play? Was Sadie even human, or had my fear turned her into something else? By spring, I was unraveling. My grades tanked, my friends drifted away, too scared to be seen with me. Sadie's clique had grown, a pack of wolves circling their prey. But in my lowest moments, I found something new: anger. It was small at first, a flicker in my chest, but it grew with every taunt, every shove. I wasn't just her victim anymore. I was her target, and I was done playing her game. I didn't know how, but I'd find a way to turn the tables. Sadie thought she owned me. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I was done being Sadie's punching bag. That summer, I made a vow. 8th grade would be different. As I got some personal help that summer, I decided that things would be different by the time that I had to go back to school for the following year. I wasn't going to let her win. I spent hours in the garage, practicing self-defense moves. From YouTube videos, my fists slamming into a makeshift punching bag. I worked on my voice, learning to speak up, to push back. When school started, I walked into that building with a fire in my chest. Sadie could try her tricks, but I was ready. Or so I thought. What I didn't expect was how far she'd go to keep me under her thumb. And the chilling moment I realized she wasn't just a bully, but something far more dangerous. When 8th grade started up, I was ready. I learned some MMA self-defense. I defended myself vocally. I wasn't so quiet anymore, and I started to fight back. The first test came in the cafeteria. Sadie's clique tried their usual stunt, knocking my tray to the floor. But this time, I didn't shrink. I stepped forward, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Pick it up." The room went silent. Her smirk faltered, just for a second, before she laughed it off. But I saw it, a crack in her armor. None of the old bullies from last year even looked my way again, except for Sadie, who still tried to pull her usual stunts. But the more I pushed back, the angrier she got. Sadie didn't like losing control. The longer I showed her that I didn't care, the more it seemed to get to her. She doubled down, her attacks more vicious. One day I found my desk covered in sticky notes, each one scrawled with insults. I swept them off, but her voice hissed from behind me. "You think you're tough now, Jamie?" I turned, ready to snap back, but she was already slipping out the door, her laughter echoing. I started keeping a notebook, logging every incident, every taunt, every time she crossed a line. If the school wouldn't help, I'd build my own case. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for every kid she'd ever hurt. But Sadie was clever. She knew how to stay untouchable. She'd strike when no one was watching, leaving no proof. One afternoon, I was in the art room, working on a project when the lights flickered. I looked up, and there she was, standing in the doorway, her silhouette framed against the hall. "You're not as smart as you think," she said, her voice low, almost a growl. Before I could respond, the lights went out. I fumbled for my phone, my heart pounding. But when the lights came back on, she was gone. A chill ran through me. Was she just messing with me? Or was there something more sinister at play? I started noticing things I couldn't explain. My locker would be open when I knew I'd locked it. My homework would vanish only to reappear days later, crumpled and stained. One night, I woke to a tapping at my window. I pulled back the curtain, my breath catching, but there was nothing, just the empty street below. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that Sadie was out there, watching, waiting. I started carrying a small pocket knife, not to use, but to feel safer. It was a reminder I wasn't helpless anymore. The turning point came during a rainy afternoon. I was walking to the gym, my head down, when I heard her footsteps behind me. Sadie didn't share a gym class with me, but she did like following, being around in between classes and trying to get a rise out of me. Her voice dripped with venom. "You think you can change, Jamie? You're still nothing." Something snapped. I stopped, turned, and shoved her back, my voice steady. "Leave. Me alone, Sadie, I'm done with you." In a quick motion, I stopped walking, spun around, pushed Sadie backwards, and spit towards her with it landing on her leg. I told her to just get lost and to leave me alone. She froze, her eyes wide, like a predator caught off guard. For the first time, I saw fear in her face, but it wasn't over. That moment lit a fuse, and Sadie was about to explode. Sadie's frozen stare haunted me for days. That moment in the gym when I pushed her back changed everything. I'd cracked her facade, and she hated me for it. But instead of backing off, she became a shadow, always lurking, always waiting. One day I was walking to the gym with Sadie, following close behind me. I could feel her eyes on me, her presence like a weight pressing down. I kept walking, ignoring her taunts, but something felt different. Her voice was sharper, more desperate. "You think you're free, Jamie? You'll never be free." I didn't turn back. I couldn't. Because deep down I knew this was building to something terrifying, and it was about to explode. After school, I was walking across the school building to head for the parking lot next to the high school building. I thought I'd shaken her off, but then I saw her, trailing me, her steps deliberate. Everything felt normal until I saw Sadie not far behind me. I quickened my pace, weaving through the crowd, but she matched me, her shadow inescapable. I took a different path than my normal route around the back of the school. I looked back to check, and yep, Sadie was taking the exact same path I was. And she stopped walking every time that I looked back at her. My heart pounded. This wasn't just bullying anymore, it was stalking, predatory, obsessive. I reached the bus lot, my breath ragged. I definitely did not want her to learn which bus was mine, nor did I want her to follow me home. So I decided to try and figure her out. I jumped onto a random bus, the driver glaring at me. Sadie ran in after me. The driver yelled at her, and I seized my chance, sprinting off the bus and racing to my real one. I got in, and the bus drove away just as Sadie got off to see where I went. I collapsed into a seat, my hands shaking, thinking I'd won. But the victory was short-lived. The next day, Sadie was gone. I didn't see Sadie anywhere at school, not in any of the classes, not at lunch, not even after school either. I asked around, but no one knew where she was. This went on for the rest of the week. By Thursday, I started to relax, daring to hope she'd given up. But on Friday, everything changed. When the end of the school day came, I was about to walk out of the front doors to the building when something stopped me. A gut-wrenching feeling, like a warning from deep inside, told me not to go. I brushed it off, blaming my nerves, and stepped outside. The sidewalk stretched before me, connecting the middle and high schools. The parking lot where I had to walk to my bus was on the opposite end of this long sidewalk. I started walking, the crowd thinning as kids scattered. Then I saw her. Sadie, looking completely ticked off, as bad as a rabid dog, full sprinting right towards me. I ran, my legs burning, adrenaline surging. She was fast, closing the gap, her face twisted with rage. I dodged through clusters of kids, their shocked faces blurring past, but Sadie was relentless. I reached the bus lot, gasping, and thought I'd lost her. Then she lunged from the crowd, grabbing my hair and backpack, yanking me back. Sadie grabbed me by my hair and backpack, swinging me around in a circle as I tried to get her off of me. I screamed, flailing, but no one stepped in. She was a whirlwind of fury, her grip like iron. Then, a miracle. My older brother was walking, out of high school, drinking a soda, when he saw the scene and ran to help. He threw his soda at Sadie's head, startling her enough to loosen her grip. He was the only one who knew about Sadie and recognized her. I broke free, stumbling, and we bolted for the bus, making it just as the doors closed. I looked back, and there she was, Sadie on the ground, pinned by a teacher. Right on the ground next to her was an open hunting knife. The metallic clatter as it hit the pavement echoed in my mind. That knife was meant for me. I knew it in my bones. That knife on the ground was a wake-up call. It wasn't just a weapon, it was proof that Sadie's obsession had crossed into something deadly. I sat on the bus, my brother's arm around me, my body trembling as the reality sank in. I'd come inches from disaster, and the only reason I was alive was a split-second act of courage from someone who cared. Next Monday, I got a call down to the office where my brother was also waiting. We got pulled into the counselor's office where there were 2 police officers waiting. They needed my story, every detail of Sadie's reign of terror. I broke down, the weight of 2 years spilling out, every taunt, every chase, every moment I'd felt like prey. I practically broke down right there and then and told them everything. What Sadie did to me last year, what I almost did because of her torment, the bus incident the week prior, and what happened on the sidewalk too. My brother, he put his arm around me while I just sat there, nearly sobbing my words out. The officers listened, their faces unreadable, scribbling notes. One of the officers asked me if I would like to tell my parents so they could press charges. I was done. I just wanted it to end. I just told them to do whatever they wanted. I just wanted this to stop. The counselor could tell that I was already upset enough, so he sent me back to class. Me and my brother made a promise to never speak about this again. Sadie's fate came swiftly. Sadie ended up getting into juvie for the rest of the school year, all the way until halfway through the second semester of freshman year of high school. The school had some changes too. Police officers were now on duty during school hours in the middle, and high schools, we had stricter policies with bullying, and kids could now stay with teachers before, during, after school if they needed to. I never did see Sadie again after that, not even in passing. I heard whispers that she'd dropped out after high school, her dreams of college shattered by that police record. I later learned from one of her old friends that after senior year, she dropped out to get her GED because the incident on her police record meant college was impossible. But the scars lingered. It's been over 9 years since that day on the sidewalk. And I'll admit that this is honestly not as bad as what other kids probably had to go through, but I still feel the trauma from that time in middle school, and especially from what Sadie did to me. After middle school, I had developed depression, severe social anxiety, and PTSD from the bullies. I'd flinch at loud noises, check over my shoulder in crowds, wake up from nightmares where Sadie's knife was inches from my throat. But I refused to let her define me. I started therapy, pouring out the pain I'd buried for years. I joined a support group, connecting with others who'd survived their own battles. Slowly, I rebuilt myself piece by piece. I'm doing better now. I'm looking into therapy. I'm in university right now too, and I cannot be prouder of how far I've come. I'm studying psychology, determined to understand why people like Sadie do what they do, and to help kids like me find their strength. I've learned that trauma doesn't vanish, but it can fuel you. Every step I take is a defiance of the girl who tried to break me. I wish I could tell my 13-year-old self, cowering in that bathroom, that she'd survive, that she'd be stronger than she ever imagined, that Sadie was the one who'd lose in the end. This isn't just my story, it's a warning. Bullies like Sadie thrive on silence, on systems that look the other way, but they can't win if we speak up, if we fight back, if we refuse to be victims. I carry my scars with pride now, a reminder of what I overcame. And if you're out there facing your own Sadie, know this: you are not alone. You are enough, and you will rise above. The knife may have fallen, but its shadow lingered. After Sadie's attack, I wasn't the same. The world felt sharper, more dangerous, like every corner hid a new threat. I'd walk to school with my head down, avoiding eye contact, my heart racing at the sound of footsteps behind me. Therapy helped, but it was a slow climb. I'd sit in my counselor's office, clutching a tissue, trying to untangle the knot of fear Sadie had tied inside me. Why had she chosen me? What drove her to such extremes? Those questions haunted me, but they also pushed me to find answers, not just for myself, but for others who'd faced their own monsters. High school was a fresh start, but it wasn't easy. I had developed depression, severe social anxiety, and PTSD from the bullies. The first few months I ate lunch alone, too scared to trust anyone. Friends from middle school had drifted away, either too afraid of Sadie's legacy or too caught up in their own lives. But I wasn't alone for long. A teacher, Ms. Harper, noticed my silence and invited me to join the peer mentoring club. It was a small group, just a handful of kids who'd been through tough times. For the first time, I shared my story. Not the whole thing, but enough. They listened, and they understood. That was the moment I realized I wasn't broken. I was healing. I threw myself into the club, helping younger kids navigate the chaos of middle school. I'd see myself in their eyes, scared, unsure, desperate for someone to care. I'd told them what I wished someone had told me. You're stronger than you know. Don't let anyone steal your voice. It wasn't just advice. It was a promise. To myself. Every time I helped a kid stand up to a bully, I felt a piece of my old self come back. Sadie had taken so much, but she couldn't take my ability to rebuild. But healing wasn't linear. Some days I'd be fine, laughing with new friends, acing a test. Others I'd spiral, haunted by memories of Sadie's rage. One night I found an old notebook from 7th grade, filled with her taunts I'd scribbled down to prove she was real. Reading it, I felt the fear again, raw and suffocating. I called my brother, now in college, and he listened as I poured it all out. "You're not that kid anymore, Jamie," he said. "You fought back and you won." His words were a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge. I started volunteering at a local youth center, running workshops on bullying prevention. I shared my story, not to dwell on the pain, but to show that survival was possible. Kids would come up after, shyly admitting their own struggles, and I'd listen, just like Ms. Harper had listened to me. It was exhausting, but it gave me purpose. I wasn't just surviving Sadie's legacy. I was turning it into something good. I began to see my scars not as wounds, but as battle marks, proof of my resilience. My parents, who'd been in the dark about the worst of it, started to understand. Mom would hug me a little tighter. Dad would check in more often. They didn't know how to fix it, but they tried, and that was enough. I learned to forgive myself for staying silent so long, for thinking I could handle it alone. Sadie's power came from my isolation, but I wasn't isolated anymore. I had people in my corner, and that made all the difference. By senior year, I was a different person. I'd joined the debate team, found a passion for public speaking, and even made the honor roll. But the real victory was internal. I could walk through crowds without flinching, laugh without looking over my shoulder, sleep without nightmares. Sadie's shadow was still there, but it was smaller, weaker. I'd taken back my life, and no one, not Sadie, not anyone, could steal it again. Looking back, I see Sadie not as a monster, but as a warning. She was a product of a system that let her thrive, a school that turned a blind eye, a culture that excused cruelty as kids being kids. But she was also human, driven by her own demons, jealousy, insecurity, a need for control. I'll never know what made her tick, but I don't need to. Understanding her doesn't erase what she did, but it helps me move forward. My story isn't about Sadie. It's about what I did with the pain she caused. I'm in university now and cannot be prouder of how far I've come. I'm majoring in psychology, diving into research on bullying and its long-term effects. My goal is to work with schools, to create systems that don't fail kids like me. I want to be the adult I needed when I was 13, the one who listens, who acts, who cares. Every paper I write, every presentation I give is a step toward that dream. Sadie thought she could break me, but she gave me a purpose instead. The trauma still lingers, though. I still feel the trauma from that time in middle school, and especially from what Sadie did to me. A loud noise can make me jump. A stranger's stare can send my heart racing. But I've learned to manage it. Therapy taught me coping strategies, breathing exercises, journaling, grounding techniques. I carry a small stone in my pocket, a reminder to stay present, to not let fear pull me back. And when the nightmares come, I remind myself, I survived. I'm still here. I think about the kids still out there, facing their own Sadies. To them, I want to say, you are not your pain. You are not your fear. You are stronger than you know, and you don't have to fight alone. Tell someone, a teacher, a friend, a parent. Keep telling until someone listens, and if no one does, keep fighting. Your voice is your power, and no one can take it away unless you let them. My brother and I broke our promise not to speak about Sadie. We talk about it now, not often, but enough to keep the memory honest. He's my hero, not just for that soda can, but for being there when I needed him most. Our bond grew stronger through that ordeal, a reminder that family can be a shield against the worst storms. It's been over 9 years since that day on the sidewalk. I carry the lessons with me. Resilience, courage, the power of speaking out. I'm not defined by what Sadie did, but by how I rose above it. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor, a fighter, a voice for those still finding theirs. And if you're listening, facing your own battle, know this. You can survive, you can thrive, and you will write your own story, one where you, not your Sadie, get to win. One Monday, Sadie walked into school like she owned it. By Tuesday, she was gone. No one saw her leave, no one heard her scream, just vanished, like she'd never existed. My name's Alex, and I was her favorite target. For years, Sadie made my life hell, her cruel words slicing through me in the halls of our middle school. But when she disappeared, the silence was worse than her taunts. The school locked down overnight. Cops patrolled the halls, their boots echoing like a warning. Everyone whispered, was she kidnapped? Did she run? Or was it something worse? I didn't buy the rumors. I saw her that last day, her eyes wild, her hands shaking like she was running from something no one else could see. And I'm the only one who knows the truth, or at least part of it. Sadie wasn't just a bully, she was a storm. Popular, untouchable, with a posse that hung on her every word. But that final week, she unraveled. She'd stand by her locker, staring at nothing, muttering under her breath. I caught her once slipping a folded note into her pocket, her face pale as she glanced over her shoulder. "You don't get it, Alex," she hissed when she saw me watching. "You're next." I laughed it off. Sadie's mind games were nothing new. But hours later, she was gone, and those words stuck like a splinter in my mind. What did she mean? Who was after her? And why did I feel like I was being watched? The school became a fortress after that. New rules suffocated us, no lingering, no unlocked doors. Teachers watched us like hawks, and parents hovered at pickup. But the security didn't make me feel safe. It made me feel trapped. Kids spread stories. Sadie ran away with a boyfriend, or she was taken by a stranger in a van. I didn't believe any of it. I kept seeing that note in my head, the way her hands trembled. Sadie wasn't the type to run. She fought, always. So what could scare her enough to make her vanish? I started noticing things no one else did. Her locker, untouched since that day, had scratches around the lock like someone had tried to pry it open. At night, I'd lie awake replaying her last words. "You're next." My gut told me this wasn't over. Sadie's disappearance wasn't random. It was a warning. I had to find out what happened, even if it meant digging into places no one else dared to look. Her note, her fear, her absence, they were pieces of a puzzle, and I was the only one stupid enough to put it together. If you think this is just a story about a missing girl, you're wrong. It's about what happens when you ignore the signs, when the truth is closer than you think. Stay with me, because what I found will change how you see the world. Sadie wasn't just mean, she was calculated. For years, she tormented me, turning every school day into a gauntlet. She'd trip me in the halls, her laughter sharp as glass, or spread rumors that left me eating lunch alone. Her friends, a pack of loyal shadows, amplified her cruelty, stealing my books or cornering me in the bathroom. I was the quiet kid, easy prey, and Sadie knew it. She made my 7th grade a living hell, and no one stopped her. Teachers turned a blind eye, calling it kids being kids. I tried reporting her dozens of times, but the principal shrugged, saying I needed proof. Proof? Her name was written all over my misery. That last week, though, Sadie changed. Her usual swagger was gone, replaced by a nervous edge. She'd snap at her friends, her eyes darting like she was waiting for something to pounce. I saw her in the cafeteria, ignoring her tray, scribbling furiously in a small black notebook. When she caught me staring, she slammed it shut and stormed off, but not before muttering, "Mind your own business, Alex." It wasn't her usual venom, it was fear. I didn't know what to make of it, but it stuck with me, a crack in her untouchable armor. The school transformed after she vanished. Police officers patrolled during school hours, their radios buzzing with codes I couldn't decipher. New policies locked us down. No wandering, no late arrivals, no excuses. Kids could stay with teachers if they felt unsafe, a rule that felt like a band-aid on a broken bone. The halls, once loud with chaos, were now eerily quiet, like the school was holding its breath. My friends whispered about Sadie, but no one had answers. Her locker stayed empty, her desk untouched, like a shrine to a ghost. I kept waiting for her to walk through the doors smirking, ready to make my life hell again. She never did. I started asking questions, quietly at first. A janitor told me he'd seen Sadie near the back exit that Monday, talking to someone he couldn't see. A classmate swore she'd heard Sadie on the phone, arguing in hushed tones. The pieces didn't fit, but they fueled my obsession. Why was she scared? Who was she talking to? And why did her words, "You're next," feel like a warning meant for me? I checked her locker one day, when no one was around. The scratches I'd noticed before were deeper now, and a faint smudge of red paint, or was it something else and stained the handle? I didn't touch it. My stomach churned, telling me to walk away, but I couldn't. The school's new rules didn't stop the unease. Kids avoided the back exit, saying it felt wrong. Teachers stopped staying late, their cars gone by dusk. Even the cops seemed on edge, their eyes lingering on the empty halls. I knew I was risking trouble, but I had to dig deeper. Sadie's disappearance wasn't just a mystery. It was a wound, and I was picking at it knowing it might bleed. Every step I took felt like I was closer to something dangerous, something no one else wanted to face. But I wasn't going to stop. Not until I knew why Sadie vanished and what she'd been running from. I couldn't let it go. Sadie's disappearance was a puzzle, and every piece I found made the picture darker. I started skipping study hall to dig through school, records in the library, old files stuffed in a cabinet no one checked. Most were useless, budget reports, detention logs, but one file caught my eye. A disciplinary report from last year, Sadie's name in bold. It described an incident where she'd been caught vandalizing a teacher's car, but the details were vague, and the case was dropped. Tucked inside was a note from the principal. Monitor her closely. Why? What weren't they saying? I talked to anyone who might know something. A kid in my math class, Jake, said he'd seen Sadie at a gas station the weekend before she vanished, buying a burner phone with cash. He thought it was weird. She wasn't the type to need a secret phone. Another rumor came from a lunch lady. Sadie had been hanging around the old maintenance shed behind the school, a place kids avoided because it was locked and creepy. I checked it out one afternoon. The shed's door was rusted, but there were fresh cigarette butts nearby, the brand Sadie smoked. My skin prickled. She'd been here, hiding something. The school stayed on edge, cops patrolling like sentries. Kids could linger with teachers if they were scared, but it didn't help. The air felt heavy, like a storm was coming. I kept going, back to Sadie's locker, those scratches haunting me. One day, I worked up the nerve to try opening it. The combination was easy to guess. Her birthday, posted all over her social media. Inside, I found a crumpled photo of Sadie with a guy I didn't recognize. He was older, maybe 20, with a hard stare and a tattoo peeking from his sleeve. On the back, in Sadie's handwriting, "Don't trust him." My heart raced. Was this who she was running from? I showed the photo to Jake, but he didn't know. The guy. He did, however, tell me about a party Sadie went to the Friday before she disappeared. It was at an abandoned house on the edge of town, a place kids used for hookups and booze. Jake said Sadie left early, looking spooked, like she'd seen a ghost. I tracked down the address and went there after school. The house was a wreck, broken windows, graffiti everywhere. In the basement, I found a pile of burned papers, some with Sadie's handwriting. One fragment stood out. "He knows where I live." My hands shook as I pocketed it. This wasn't just a runaway case. Sadie was in trouble, and someone wanted her gone. Every clue pulled me deeper, but it came at a cost. My grades slipped and my mom started asking why I was so distracted. I couldn't tell her. I barely understood it myself. The school felt like a maze, every corner hiding a secret. I was getting closer to the truth, but I was also getting noticed. Late at night, I'd hear footsteps outside my house. Too heavy to be a neighbor. My phone buzzed with unknown numbers, no one on the other end. I was scared, but I couldn't stop. Sadie's warning, "You're next," wasn't just a threat. It was a call to keep going, to find her before it was too late. The burned paper from the abandoned house was my breaking point. "He knows where I live," Sadie had written, her words a scream on the page. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't stop thinking about that photo. The guy with the tattoo, his cold stare. Who was he? A boyfriend, a dealer, someone worse? I was in over my head, but backing off wasn't an option. Sadie's disappearance wasn't just a mystery anymore. It was a warning, and I was too deep to ignore it. I had to find her, or at least find out what happened before her warning about me being next came true. I went back to the school, this time at night. The cops were still there, their flashlights sweeping the halls, but they stuck to the main building. The maintenance shed was unguarded, its lock loose from years of neglect. I slipped inside, my phone's flashlight shaking in my hand. The air was thick with dust and something sour, like old cigarettes. On a shelf I found a backpack, Sadie's, the same one she carried every day. Inside was her black notebook, the one I'd seen her scribbling in. My hands trembled as I opened. The pages were filled with names, dates, and addresses, some crossed out in red ink. One entry stopped me cold, my name circled with "Tell him" written next to it. Tell who? About what? Before I could process it, I heard footsteps outside, heavy, deliberate. I shoved the notebook into my jacket and killed my light, crouching behind a crate. The door creaked open and a shadow filled the frame. It was him, the guy from the photo, his tattoo glinting in the moonlight. He didn't see me, but he moved like he was looking for something, muttering under his breath. "She shouldn't have talked," he growled, kicking over a box. My heart pounded so loud I thought he'd hear it. He lingered for what felt like forever, then left, his boots fading into the night. I waited frozen until I was sure he was gone. I ran home, the notebook burning a hole in my jacket. Reading it under my desk lamp, I pieced together a nightmare. Sadie had been mixed up with this guy, someone dangerous, maybe tied to drugs or worse. The addresses in her notebook were drop points, places she'd been sent to deliver or pick up something. The crossed out names, people who'd disappeared or messed up. My name being circled meant I'd seen too much, or she'd wanted to warn me. The shed, the gas station, the party, it was all connected. Sadie hadn't run away, she'd been silenced. I wanted to go to the police, but what could I say? A notebook and a hunch weren't evidence, and the cops already thought Sadie was a runaway. The school's new rules, cops on duty, locked doors, didn't stop the fear. I was being watched, I knew it. The footsteps outside my house were louder now, and my phone kept ringing, always silent on the other end. I was scared, but Sadie's notebook was a lifeline. She'd left it for me, a map to the truth. I had one last place to check, the address, at the end of her list. If I didn't go, I'd never know. But if I did, I might not come back. The address in Sadie's notebook led to a rundown warehouse on the edge of town, a place that screamed trouble. I went at dusk, my stomach in knots, the notebook tucked in my backpack. The building was dark, its windows boarded, but a faint light flickered inside. I didn't want to go in, but Sadie's words, "Tell him," pushed me forward. I slipped through a broken door, the air heavy with oil and something sharp like bleach. Inside, crates were stacked high, and voices echoed from deeper within, low, angry, speaking in clipped tones. I stayed low, my heart racing, knowing I was out of my depth. I found a stack of papers on a table, invoices with names matching Sadie's notebook. One had her name marked handled. My blood ran cold. Whatever she'd been involved in, it was bigger than I thought. Drugs, trafficking, something that got her erased. I snapped a photo with my phone, but before I could move, a hand grabbed my shoulder. It was him. The guy from the shed, his tattooed arm like a vice. "You're dumber than she was," he snarled, yanking me to my feet. I screamed, kicking, and managed to slip free, sprinting for the door as he shouted after me. I didn't stop running until I was miles away, my lungs burning, the photo still on my phone. The school never recovered. Cops stayed on patrol and kids could hide with teachers, but the fear lingered like a stain. Sadie's absence was a ghost, her name unspoken but heavy. I went to the police with the photo and notebook, but they called it circumstantial. The warehouse was raided a week later, but it was empty, the crates gone, the voices silenced. The guy with the tattoo, never found. I was told to drop it, to move on, but I couldn't. Sadie's warning, "You're next," hung over me like a blade. Those footsteps outside my house stopped, but I still checked my locks every night. Months later, I found a note slipped under my door. No signature, just a single line. "You're lucky." My hands shook as I burned it, the ash curling like Sadie's handwriting. I don't know if it was from him or someone else, but it felt like a promise, or a threat. I moved away that summer, started high school in a new town, but Sadie's story followed me. I kept her notebook, its pages a reminder of what happens when you get too close to the truth. I never found out what happened to her, but I know she didn't run. She fought and she lost. This isn't just a story, it's a warning. The world's full of Sadies, people caught in webs they can't escape. And there are always eyes watching, waiting for you to step out of line. Trust your gut when it screams to run. I ignored mine too long, and I'm still looking over my shoulder. If you hear about a girl like Sadie vanishing, don't just whisper and move on. Dig. Ask questions. Because the truth is out there and it's closer than you think. I'm done running, but I'll never stop wondering, what really happened to Sadie and who's next? The first time I saw him, I was 6, lying in my bed in that creaky old townhouse, the kind of place that felt wrong even in daylight. My body locked up, like invisible chains held me down, my screams trapped in my throat. I could only move my eyes, and there he was, a man in a cowboy hat, arms crossed, standing at the foot of my bed, staring through me with eyes I couldn't see. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood, his shadow swallowing the room's faint light. Then, a blink, he vanished, and I jolted upright, gasping, heart pounding like it had burst. It happened for years, from 6 to 12. Always when my dad was away at his work camp, gone for weeks. Why me? What was he? And why did our cats act like they saw him too? That house wasn't just old, it was alive, its walls pulsing with secrets watching us, waiting. Years later, I told my mom, and her face turned white, her hands trembling. She knew him too, had seen him in the same paralyzing terror. What was hiding in that house, and why wouldn't it let us go? The townhouse sat in a crumbling 1920s complex, where the air was thick with a faint smell of ash, like a fire had burned long ago and never left. Our 2 cats would sit at the bottom of the stairs, eyes locked on the landing above, sometimes for an hour, like they were watching something move. I'd lie awake, listening for footsteps, whispers, anything to explain the dread that clung to me like damp cloth. The silence was worse, heavy and wrong, as if the house was holding its breath, waiting for me to look away. Every night I'd check the corners, the shadows, terrified he'd be there again, his hat low, his presence choking. I was just a kid, but I knew something was wrong. Something that made the cat's fur bristle. Something that made Mom check the locks twice when Dad was gone. That townhouse wasn't a home. It was a trap, a maze of creaking floors and peeling walls that seemed to whisper when you weren't listening. Built in the 1920s, it loomed in a decaying complex, its windows dark, its air thick with a faint sour smell of smoke, like a fire had scarred it decades ago. I'd feel eyes on me every time I climbed the stairs, like someone was watching from the landing above, just out of sight. It wasn't just me. Our cats, Shadow and Luna, would sit at the bottom of the stairs, staring up, their eyes glowing in the dark, locked on something I couldn't see. Shadow, with his one eye half blue, was the strangest, sitting motionless for hours, tail still, like he was guarding us from whatever lurked up there. His stare made my skin crawl, like he saw something I was too scared to face. I was 7 when I overheard the neighbors, their voices low, nervous as they glanced at our unit. The old place, they called it, muttering about that man who'd lived there long ago. One woman, her hands trembling, told me the complex had a history. Fires, disappearances, stories no one liked to repeat. She crossed herself and hurried away, leaving me with a knot in my stomach. I started noticing things after that. The lights flickered when Dad was gone, always at night, casting jagged shadows on the walls. A low hum, like muffled voices, drifted from the plaster. Too faint to understand, but too real to ignore. The air felt alive, pressing against me, watching my every step. I'd avoid the stairs, taking the long way through the kitchen, but the feeling followed, heavy, unblinking. I told myself it was nothing, just a kid's imagination running wild. But then I'd see Shadow, his eerie eye fixed on the landing, his body tense, and I knew it wasn't just me. What was up there? Why did the house feel like it was waiting for us to make a mistake? And why did it only wake when Dad was away, leaving me and Mom alone with its secrets? I was 22, sitting in Mom's new house, a bright, airy place miles from that suffocating townhouse, when I finally mustered the courage to ask about the man in the hat. I expected her to laugh, to call it a childhood nightmare. Instead, her coffee mug froze mid-air, her face draining of color, eyes wide with a fear I hadn't seen since we lived there. "I saw him too," she whispered, her voice trembling, like speaking his name could summon him back. "When your dad was gone, I'd wake up paralyzed and he'd be there, hat, arms crossed, standing at my bed." She stared at the floor, fingers twitching, as if the memory could drag her back to that house, to those nights of terror. Mom was the strongest person I knew, working double shifts to keep us afloat while Dad was at his work camp, 15 days on, 15 off. But that house broke her. She felt it too, the eyes watching from the landing when she climbed the stairs, heavy, unblinking. She'd avoid the stairs at night, taking the kitchen route, but the feeling clung to her, a weight she couldn't shake. "I thought I was losing my mind," she said, tears welling up. "I didn't tell you because I wanted you to feel safe." Safe? I'd spent years terrified. Every shadow a threat, every creak his footsteps. Her fear hit me like a punch. If Mom, who faced everything head-on, was scared, what chance did I have as a kid? I pressed for more, desperate for answers, but she clammed up, her eyes darting. Away. She was hiding something, a piece of the puzzle she wouldn't share. Why did he come for us? Was it the house or something we brought with us? Her silence left me with one chilling truth. We weren't alone in that house, and she'd known it all along. The air in her new kitchen felt heavy, like the townhouse had followed us, its shadow lingering in her trembling hands. When I was 8, Grandma came to stay, her presence a rare comfort in that oppressive townhouse. She was a tough woman, raised in the country, unafraid of storms or snakes, or so I thought. One night, as she sat in the dim kitchen, her tea steaming under the flickering light, she looked around, her eyes narrowing like she saw something in the shadows. "This is a busy place," she said, her voice low, almost a warning, as if the house itself was listening. I froze, a chill crawling up my spine, my heart thudding. She wouldn't explain, just gave me a look that said, "Don't ask." But I knew she felt it. The same presence that made the air heavy, the same thing our cat saw staring at the landing night after night. The next day I cornered her, begging for answers. She sighed, her hands folding tightly, her face etched with unease. "This place has history," she said. "People went missing here long ago, fires, accidents, things no one talks about." She'd grown up nearby, knew the complex's stories, whispered tales of tenants who vanished, of flames that left scars on the walls. Her eyes flicked to the stairs, and I swear she shivered, a crack in her tough exterior. "Stay away from the landing," she warned, her voice sharp, then turned away, lips tight. I didn't push. Her fear was answer enough. After she left, I couldn't unsee it. The hum in the walls grew louder, like voices arguing in a language I couldn't grasp. Shadows moved in the corners, too quick to catch. Shadow, his one eye half blue, stared at the landing every night, his body tense, like he was daring something to come down. The house felt more alive, its pulse quickening as if Grandma's words had stirred it. What did she know? Why did her warning make the air feel thicker, the stairs more dangerous? And why did I feel like the house was watching me closer now, waiting for me to step into its trap? By the time I was 9, the man in the hat wasn't just a shadow in my nightmares. He was real, a presence that lingered even when I closed my eyes. I'd wake up, body locked, eyes darting, and there he was at the foot of my bed, his hat casting a shadow that ate the light. But now he was closer, sometimes standing in the corner of my room, his silhouette sharper, like he was stepping out of the darkness into my world. I'd blink and he'd be gone, but the air stayed cold, heavy with his presence, a weight that pressed on my chest long after he vanished. One night I heard something new, a soft tap, tap, tap from the wall behind my bed. Not pipes, not the house settling, deliberate, like someone was knocking, demanding to be let in. I lay frozen, heart hammering, too scared to move. Shadow was there, staring at the landing through my open door, his one eye half blue, glinting in the dark. The way tapping stopped, but the silence was worse, thick and alive, like the house was watching, waiting for my next move. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak a threat, every shadow his hat. I started avoiding my room, dragging a blanket to the couch when Dad was gone, hoping distance would keep him away. But the feeling followed, that unblinking gaze from the landing pressing down, inescapable. The hum in the walls grew louder, the smoke smell stronger, as if the house was waking up, its pulse quickening. Shadow kept staring at the landing, his body tense, and I'd wonder, was he protecting me or warning me? The cowboy was getting bolder, his shadow closer, his presence heavier. What did he want? Why was he stepping out of the dark? And why? Did the house feel like it was helping him, closing in on us with every passing night? Shadow wasn't like Luna, our other cat, who'd nap through anything. His one eye, half blue, seemed to see things we couldn't, and every night, he'd sit at the bottom of the stairs staring up at the landing, like he was locked in a standoff with something unseen. His gaze was unnerving, his body still, tail rigid, as if he was guarding us or warning us. But one night when I was 10, Shadow did something different, something that changed everything. I was lying awake, the house humming with that eerie whisper when he meowed. Low, urgent, not his usual lazy call. I crept to the door, heart pounding, and saw him at the base of the stairs looking back at me, his blue eye glowing like a beacon in the dark. He took a step up, then another, pausing as if urging me to follow. I don't know why I went, fear, curiosity, or some pull I couldn't name. But I climbed, each step colder, the air thicker, like I was walking into a trap. Shadow stopped at the landing, pawing at the wall, his claws scraping against the wood. I squinted and saw it. A faint carving, a crude star, etched deep like it had been there for decades. I touched it, and the air shifted, heavy, warm, like the house was breathing. Shadow hissed, his fur bristling, and I stumbled back, my heart racing. The hum grew louder, a chant I couldn't understand, and the lights flickered, casting jagged shadows. I ran to my room, locking the door, but the house felt different. Angrier, like I'd crossed a line by touching that mark. What was that carving? Why had Shadow led me to it? The house was awake now, its pulse stronger, its eyes sharper. I felt them from the landing watching me, closer than ever. Shadow stared at the landing the next night, his body tense like he knew what I'd done. Had I invited the cowboy in, or was Shadow trying to show me how to stop him? The carving haunted me, its jagged star burned into my mind. It felt like a warning, or worse, a summons. I couldn't keep it to myself, so I told Mom, hoping she'd dismiss it as kid stuff. Instead, her face tightened, her voice sharp as a blade. "Stay away from the stairs," she snapped, then softened, like she regretted letting her fear show. I pushed, asking about Grandma's stories, about the busy place she'd called our house. Mom sighed, sinking into a kitchen chair, her hands trembling. "Your grandma grew up near that complex," she said. "She always said it was cursed, fires, people vanishing, stories she wouldn't tell me as a kid. She hated visiting us." "Here," said the air felt wrong. I asked about the carving. She froze, then nodded, her eyes distant. "I felt him up there," she said, her voice barely audible. "Not just at my bed, but on the landing, watching me." She'd seen the carving years ago, thought it was vandalism, but it scared her enough to avoid the landing at night. "It's not ours," she whispered, her fingers digging into her palms. "It belongs to him. Him, the cowboy, the shadow that paralyzed us both." Her fear was raw, a crack in the woman who'd always been my rock. If Mom and Grandma were scared, what was I supposed to do? The house wasn't just a building. It was alive, its walls humming with secrets, its landing a stage for something we couldn't escape. Shadow stared at the landing that night, his one eye half blue, his body tense, like he was waiting for the cowboy to step down. The hum was louder, the air heavier, as if the carving had woken something. I wanted to ask Mom more, but her silence told me she was holding back, protecting me, or herself. What was the carving? Why did it scare her so much? And why did I feel like the house was listening, ready to punish us for digging too deep? After I touched the carving, the house changed. It wasn't just watching anymore. It was acting like a beast stirring from sleep. Glasses fell from kitchen shelves, shattering in the dead of night, untouched. Doors creaked open, then slammed, shut with a force that shook the walls. The lights flickered, always when Dad was gone, as if the house knew we were alone, vulnerable. I'd wake up, paralyzed. The cowboy at my bed, his hat low, his presence heavier than ever. Now, he didn't always vanish when I blinked. Sometimes I'd see his shadow shift, creeping closer, the air growing colder, sharper, like his breath was brushing my face. One night I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, descending the stairs. I lay frozen, my heart pounding so loud I thought it had burst. Shadow was there, staring at the landing, his one eye half blue, hissing softly. The footsteps stopped outside my door, and I swear I heard breathing, low, ragged, not human. I didn't move, didn't breathe until dawn broke and the house fell silent. I checked the stairs, my legs trembling, and found nothing. But the carving seemed deeper, its edges sharper, like it was growing, feeding on our fear. I stopped sleeping, in my room dragging a blanket to the couch, hoping distance would keep him away. But the feeling followed, that unblinking gaze from the landing, pressing down, inescapable. The hum was constant now, a chant that vibrated in my bones, and the smoke smell choked the air, thicker than ever. Shadow kept staring at the landing, his fur bristling, as if he was fighting something I couldn't see. The house wasn't just haunted, it was alive, its walls pulsing, its shadows moving. What did it want? Why was it getting stronger? And why did I feel like the cowboy was no longer content to just watch, but ready to step closer, to claim us? I couldn't take the house's anger anymore, its slams, its shadows, its hum. I needed answers, so I started asking neighbors, hoping someone knew what we were facing. Most avoided me, their eyes nervous, hurrying past our unit like it was cursed. But one old man, Mr. Carter, who'd lived in the complex since the 50s, stopped to talk. His hands shook as he lit a cigarette, his voice low. "That unit's cursed," he said, pointing at our house. "Fire in 42. Killed. The man. Loner, always wore a hat. Folks said he wasn't right. Talked to himself, saw things that weren't there." I asked about the carving, the star on the landing. His face darkened, his cigarette trembling. "Seen it," he muttered. "It's not kids' vandalism. It's older, from before the fire." He wouldn't say more, just stared at the ground, like the memory hurt. I pressed, but he shook his head, telling me to leave it alone. "Some things don't want to be found," he said, and walked away. His words stuck with me, a warning I couldn't ignore. The cats kept staring at the landing, Shadow's one eye half blue, like he knew the man Carter spoke of. The hum was louder now, the whispers clearer, like a name being called through the walls. I went to the basement, where the air was thick, with that smoke smell, and found an old photo. Fuzzy, but it showed a man in a cowboy hat standing where our unit was, his face blurred but his stare piercing. My stomach dropped. Was this him? The man who died, the cowboy who watched us? I felt his eyes from the landing as I held the photo, the house humming, alive. Why was his mark still here? And why did Carter's fear make me feel like we were running out of time? The photo of the man in the hat haunted me, his blurred face, his piercing stare. It was him, I was sure, the cowboy who paralyzed us. I showed Mom, but she pushed it away, her voice sharp with fear. "Stop digging," she said, her hands trembling. But I couldn't stop. The house was alive, and the carving was its heart, pulsing with something dark. I'd feel those eyes from the landing, stronger now, like they were pulling me up the stairs, demanding I face them. Shadow kept staring, his one eye half blue, his body tense like he was trying to warn me, or lead me to something. One night I couldn't resist. I touched the carving again. The wall pulsed, warm, like it was alive, breathing under my fingers. The house groaned, a deep, angry sound that shook the floor, and the lights went out, plunging me into darkness. I stumbled back, Shadow hissing, his fur bristling, and felt it. Cold breath on my neck, the cowboy's presence so close I could taste the smoke in the air. My heart pounded, my legs weak as the hum grew louder, a chant that filled my skull. I ran to my room, locking the door, but the hum followed, the shadows moving, the carving star burning in my mind. The next day, I tried to cover the carving with paint, desperate to stop it. The brush wouldn't stick. The paint dripped, off, pooling on the floor like the house refused to let it go. The lights flickered and I felt him, right behind me, his shadow looming, his breath cold. The cats stared at the landing, their eyes glowing, and I knew the house was fighting us, protecting its secret. What was the carving? Why did touching it make the cowboy stronger? And why did I feel like the house was closing in, ready to trap us forever? Mom was falling apart. The house's anger, the slams, the shadows, the hum was breaking her. She'd check locks 3 times, jump at every creak, her eyes sunken with fear. She felt him on the landing, she admitted, not just at her bed but closer, his shadow filling the room, his presence choking her like a vice. "It's worse now," she said, her voice hollow, barely above a whisper. "Since you found that photo." I felt a stab of guilt, like I'd woken something by digging too deep. The hum was constant, a chant that vibrated through the walls, the air thick with dread, like a storm about to break. One night, she screamed, a sound that tore through the house like a blade. I ran to her room, finding her trembling, pointing at the corner. "He was here," she gasped, her hands clutching her chest, tears streaming. Nothing was there, but the air was ice cold. The carvings hum a deafening roar that shook the floor. Shadow stared at the landing, his one eye half blue, his body tense like he saw what we couldn't. Mom hugged me, her sobs shaking her body. "We can't stay," she said, her voice firm despite her fear. "This house, it wants something from us." I wanted to argue, to find answers, but her terror was contagious. I felt him too, watching from the landing, his presence heavier, closer, like he was ready to step out of the shadows. Mom called Dad, her voice shaking, telling him we had to leave. The house seemed to hear her, the hum growing louder, the lights flickering, the carving pulsing like a heartbeat. We packed in a frenzy, stuffing clothes into bags, but the house fought back. Doors slammed, the air grew colder, the shadows darker. What did he want? Why us? And what would happen if we left? Would he let us go, or follow us into the night? I was desperate for answers, so I went back to Mr. Carter, the old neighbor, who'd spoken of the fire. He looked tired, his eyes hollow, like talking about our unit drained him. We sat on his porch, the complex looming behind us, its windows dark. "That man," he said, his voice low. "The one who died in 42. He wasn't alone. Something was with him. Something old. Something wrong. That carving, it's not just a mark, it's a door." A door? To what? My stomach twisted, my mind racing. He shook his head, refusing to say more, his hands trembling as he lit another cigarette. "Get out," he warned, his eyes wide with fear, "before it takes you." I ran home, heart pounding, Carter's words echoing. The cats were at the stairs, staring up, Shadow's one eye half blue like he knew what Carter meant. The hum was deafening, the carving glowing faintly in the dark, its star pulsing like a heartbeat. I wanted to leave, but Mom was working late. Dad still gone, and I felt trapped, like the house knew we were planning to escape. The air was thick, the smoke smelled choking, as if the fire from 42 was burning again right under our feet. That night, the cowboy didn't stay at my bed. I felt him on the landing, his shadow sliding across the walls, closer than ever, his breath cold on my neck. I locked my door, but the hum followed. The carvings chant louder, like it was calling him. Was Carter right? Was the carving a door to something worse? And what would happen if it opened? The house was done waiting. It was fighting us, its anger spilling out in ways we couldn't ignore. Doors slammed at night, unopened, the sound echoing like gunshots. Glasses shattered in the kitchen, untouched, their shards glinting in the moonlight. The lights flickered, plunging us into darkness always when Dad was gone, as if the house knew we were defenseless. I'd wake, paralyzed, the cowboy closer, his hat low, his presence choking me. Now he'd linger, his shadow moving even after I blinked, creeping along the walls, the air growing colder, sharper, like he was reaching for me. One morning I found scratches on the carving, fresh, deep, like claws had torn into the wood. The hum was a chant now, words I couldn't understand but felt in my bones vibrating through the house. Mom felt it too. She'd stand at the stairs, frozen, feeling those eyes from above. "It's angry," she whispered, her voice trembling, her hands clenched. Angry at what? Us, the photo, the carving. I tried to cover the carving with paint, desperate to stop it, but the paint dripped off, pooling on the floor, like the house refused to let it go. The lights went out, and I felt him right behind me, his breath cold, his shadow looming. Shadow stared at the landing, his one eye half blue, his fur bristling, his hiss low and sharp. The house wasn't just haunted, it was alive, its walls pulsing, its shadows fighting to keep us. I wanted to run, but where could we go? The cowboy was part of the house, his carving its heart, and we were trapped in its grip. What had we done to make it so mad? And why did I feel like the house was ready to claim us, to pull us into its shadows forever? The photo of the man in the hat was like a curse. His blurred face, his piercing stare, burned into my mind. It was him, the cowboy, I was sure. I hid, under my bed, but it felt alive, like it was watching me, waiting. The cats kept staring at the landing, Shadow's one eye half blue, like he knew the photo's secret, like he was guarding it, or guarding us from it. I showed it to Mom again, begging for answers, my voice shaking. She pushed it away, tears falling, her hands trembling. "I don't know," she said, her voice breaking. "But it's him. It's always been him." I went back to the basement, where I'd found the photo, the air thick with that choking smoke smell. My flashlight flickered, casting jagged shadows, and I found something else. A rusted pocket watch, its face cracked, engraved with initials. J.H. My heart stopped. Was this his? The cowboy's? I held it and the house groaned, a deep, angry sound. The carvings hum louder like a warning. Shadow appeared staring at the landing, his hiss sharp, his blue eye glowing in the dark. I dropped the watch, ran upstairs, my legs weak, but the hum followed. The cowboy's shadow flickering in the corner of my eye, closer than ever. The watch and photo were pieces of him, I knew it. Pieces of J.H., the man who died in the fire. But why were they still here, buried in the basement, waiting for me to find them? I felt his eyes from the landing, stronger now, like he was angry I'd touched his things. The house was alive, its walls humming, its shadows moving, and I was caught in its trap. Who was J.H.? Why did the house care so much about his relics? And why did Shadow seem to know? His stare a warning I couldn't understand. Mom was at her limit. The house's anger, the slams, the scratches, the hum, was tearing her apart. She felt him on the landing, she said, not just at her bed, but closer, his shadow filling the room, his presence, choking her like a vice. Her eyes were sunken, her hands trembling as she admitted, "It's worse now since you found that photo and watch." I felt guilty, like I'd stirred something by digging into the house's secrets. The hum was constant, a chant that vibrated through the walls, the air thick with dread. The smoke smell so strong it burned my throat. One night, Mom screamed, a sound that ripped through the house like a blade. I ran to her room, finding her trembling, pointing at the corner. "He was here," she gasped, her hands clutching her chest, tears streaming. Nothing was there, but the air was ice cold. The carvings hum a deafening roar that shook the floor. Shadow stared at the landing, his one eye half blue, his body tense like he saw the cowboy's shadow lingering. Mom hugged me, her sobs shaking her body. "We can't stay," she said, her voice firm despite her fear. "This house, it wants something from us." I wanted to find answers, to understand JH and the carving, but her terror was contagious. I felt him too, watching from the landing, his presence heavier, closer, like he was ready to step out of the shadows. Mom called Dad, her voice shaking, telling him we had to leave. The house seemed to hear her, the hum growing louder, the lights flickering, the carving pulsing like a heartbeat. We packed in a frenzy, stuffing clothes into bags, but the house fought back. Doors slammed, the air grew colder, the shadows darker. What did he want? Why us? And what would happen if we left? Would he let us go or follow us into the night? Our last night in the townhouse was a nightmare. A battle against something we couldn't see but felt in every creak, every shadow. Mom and I packed in silence, the house alive with rage. Doors slammed shut, unopened, the sound echoing like thunder. The lights flickered, plunging us into darkness, the hum a deafening chant that vibrated through the walls. I woke paralyzed, the cowboy at my bed, closer than ever, his hat low, his shadow choking the room. He didn't vanish this time. I felt his breath cold and sharp on my face, his presence so heavy I couldn't breathe. I screamed, and he was gone. But the house shook, its walls groaning like it was screaming back at us. Shadow stared at the landing, his one eye half blue, his body rigid, hissing softly like he was facing the cowboy head on. I ran to Mom's room, finding her awake, trembling, her eyes wide with terror. She felt him too on the landing, his presence everywhere, filling the house like a storm. The carving glowed, brighter than ever, its star pulsing, and I swear I heard a voice, low, guttural, calling my name through the hum. We grabbed our bags, stumbling through the dark, the house fighting us every step. Doors stuck, the air grew colder, the smoke smell choking us, as if the fire from 42 was burning again. We made it to the car, our breath fogging in the night air, and drove away, the townhouse looming in the rear-view mirror. I looked back, my heart pounding, and saw the landing window, dark but alive, his eyes watching us, unblinking. The hum faded as we drove, but the weight didn't lift. I felt him from the landing, even miles away, his shadow lingering. Had we escaped, or had we carried him with us? Would he let us go, or was he waiting, biding his time in the dark? We moved 2 blocks away to a new house that felt like a sanctuary, bright, airy, with no creaks or shadows. The air was light, the walls silent, and Mom smiled more, her eyes less haunted. Dad was home, his presence a comfort, and I thought it was over, that we'd left the cowboy behind. But I couldn't shake the feeling. The eyes from the landing, the cowboy's stare still burned into me. I kept the photo and watch hidden in a box, afraid to touch them, afraid they'd bring him back. Every night I'd check the stairs, half expecting to see Shadow staring up, his one eye half blue, his body tense. One night I woke to a sound, a soft meow, low and urgent, just outside my window. My heart stopped. I crept to the glass, my breath fogging, and saw him. Shadow, his one eye half blue, staring up at me from the yard. How? We'd left him with neighbors, unable to take him. His eye glowed, just like in the townhouse, and I felt it. The cowboy's presence, faint but real, watching from the dark. I ran to Mom, waking her, my voice shaking. She went pale, admitting she'd felt it too. A weight in the new house. A shadow that didn't belong. We called the neighbors. They hadn't seen Shadow since we moved. So what was outside my window meowing in the night? The house was quiet, no hum, no footsteps, but the fear was back, clawing at me. I felt those eyes from the landing, even here, watching, waiting. Had we brought him with us? Was Shadow his messenger, or a warning of something worse? I didn't sleep that night, staring at the stairs, listening for that meow, terrified it would come again. Shadow's appearance shattered any hope that we'd escaped. I told Mom, expecting her to dismiss it, but her face paled, her hands trembling as she sat at the kitchen table. She'd felt him too, on the landing of the old house, and now she swore she felt eyes watching her at night, even in this new, bright house. "It's not over," she whispered, her voice barely audible, like she was afraid he'd hear. We checked with the neighbors again. They confirmed Shadow was gone, vanished the day we moved. So what had I seen outside my window? Its one eye, half blue, glowing in the dark. I burned the photo and watch, hoping to sever the connection. The flames hissed like they were fighting back, but they burned to ash, leaving a bitter smell. The house stayed quiet. No hum, no footsteps, but I couldn't relax. The cats in the old house had stared at the landing, and Shadow's blue eye haunted me, a warning I couldn't decipher. I started checking the stairs in our new house, my heart racing, half expecting to feel those eyes again. Every creak, every shadow made me jump, my mind replaying the cowboy's hat, his shadow, his breath. Mom was different too, jumpier, quieter, her eyes darting to the corners. She wouldn't talk about it, but I knew she felt it, the weight that followed us. The new house was supposed to be our escape, but it felt like a lie, a thin veil over the truth. The cowboy was still with us, his presence faint, but growing. I'd lie awake, listening for that meow. Terrified it would come again, terrified it would bring him. Was he gone, or just waiting, biding his time in the shadows? And why did Shadow's eye feel like a promise, a sign that the house's grip wasn't broken? Years passed, but the townhouse never left me. I'd drive by, my heart racing, its windows dark but alive, watching me. The cats had stared at the landing, their eyes burned into my memory. And I still felt those eyes from the landing, even now years later. One day I saw Mr. Carter again, older, frailer, his hands trembling as he lit a cigarette. "You got out," he said, his voice low, his eyes haunted. "Most don't." He told me more about the cowboy, J.H., a loner who'd died in the 42 fire, his life a mystery. "His presence never left," Carter said. "That carving, it's his mark, something he left behind, something no one understands." I asked about Shadow, the cat with his one eye half blue. Carter's face darkened, his cigarette falling. "That cat wasn't yours," he said. "It was his." My stomach dropped. Shadow had been there before we moved in, always watching, always staring at the landing. Was he tied to J.H., a companion or something more? Carter wouldn't say, just told me to stay away, to never go back. I left, my mind spinning, the cowboy's shadow looming in my thoughts. The fear never faded. Every shadow, every creak, brought it back. The hat, the eyes, the hum. I'd moved far away, built a new life, but the townhouse was a scar, its mark, permanent. Was J.H. still there, waiting in that house, his carving pulsing? Or had he followed me, his shadow hiding in the corners of my mind? Shadow's blue eye was a warning, a reminder that the house's grip was stronger than distance, stronger than time. I'm 30 now, living far from that townhouse, but it's never far from me. I told my mom about the cowboy, and she saw him, too, her fear mirroring mine. I've tried to move on, to build a life free of shadows, but every creak, every dark corner brings it back. The hat, the eyes, the hum that haunted us. Last week I woke to a sound, a meow, low and urgent, just outside my apartment window. I froze, my heart pounding, and crept to the glass, my breath fogging. Nothing was there, but the air was cold, heavy, like the townhouse had found me again. I stood there, staring into the dark, terrified I'd see shadows, one eye half blue, glowing, watching. I called Mom, my voice shaking, asking if she ever felt him again. She hesitated, then whispered, "Sometimes." She felt those eyes from the landing, even in her new life, even now. I hung up, my eyes locked on my apartment stairs, half expecting to see Shadow, his blue eye glowing, his body tense. I don't know if it's JH, the cowboy, or something else, but I know this. That house marked us. It's carving a scar we can't erase. Every night I listen for that meow, my heart racing, wondering if he's still watching, waiting to claim us. The townhouse is gone from my life, but its shadow lingers, a whisper in the dark, a promise that it's not done. Have you ever felt a presence you couldn't explain? A shadow that followed you home? Love can blind you, but it can also trap you. I'm Lily, a 22-year-old who thought she'd found the perfect guy. His text lit up my phone. His voice melted my defenses. But behind the charm was something darker. He was my ex, the kind of guy who'd shower me with compliments one minute and guilt-trip me into meeting him the next. Every "I miss you" felt like a chain, pulling me closer to a place I didn't want to be. That summer, I learned how sweet words can hide a cage. This isn't just a breakup story. It's about the moment I realized I was losing myself to someone who knew exactly how to play my heart. By the time I saw the truth, it was almost too late. Here's how it happened, and why I'll never ignore my gut again. It was the summer after my junior year in college, and I was reeling from a breakup that left me raw. I'd moved to Chicago for a guy, but when he walked out, I was stuck in Noy, a cramped apartment filled with memories of him. To cope, I downloaded Tinder, hoping a few flirty chats would dull the ache. That's when I matched with Ethan. He was 26, a fitness trainer with a disarming smile and a way with words that made my heart skip. His messages were like poetry, romantic, intense, telling me I was special. At first it felt like a lifeline, a spark in the darkness of my loneliness. We met at my place after a week of texting. Ethan was everything his profile promised. Charming, attentive, with a bad boy edge that drew me in. He'd compliment me constantly, saying I made him feel alive. Over coffee, he'd lean in close, his eyes locked on mine, promising nights of laughter and connection. I was hooked, ignoring the red flags, like how he'd text me late at night, insisting I come over because he needed me. My best friend Sarah noticed something off. "Lily, he's intense," she said, scrolling through his ex posts. Shirtless, gym selfies, and cryptic quotes about loyalty. I brushed it off. Ethan made me feel wanted, something I hadn't felt in months. But his sweetness came with strings. He'd get upset if I was too tired to meet, sending a flood of messages begging me to change my mind. "You're the only one who gets me," he'd write, each word tugging at my guilt. I'd cave, driving across town at 2 a.m., telling myself it was love. By July, Ethan's requests felt less like invitations and more like demands. He'd offer massages or dinner to lure me over, but if I said no, his tone would shift, sharp, almost angry. I smoked weed to unwind, and he did too. But he'd push me to join him, saying it'd bring us closer. Sarah warned me again, her voice firm. "He's playing you, Lily. This isn't normal." I wanted to believe her, but Ethan's words were a drug, and I was addicted. Little did I know his grip was tightening, and I was about to learn how far he'd go to keep me under his spell. As summer wore on, Ethan's charm turned into a leash. His texts were relentless, a mix of flattery and pressure, urging me to drop everything and come over. "You're my world, Lily," he'd write, followed by, "Don't leave me hanging." I'd stare at my phone, torn between flattery and unease. If I said I was too tired, he'd flood my inbox with pleas, offering massages or romantic dinners to sway me. Each message chipped away at my resolve, making me feel like I owed him my time, my presence, my everything. I started losing myself. I'd skip study sessions to drive to his place, my grades slipping as I prioritized his demands. We'd smoke weed together, and he'd use those hazy moments to pull me closer, saying I was the only one who understood him. It felt intimate, but looking back, it was control. He'd ask me to stay longer, to cancel plans with friends, to be his safe space. And I did, because his words made me feel needed, even as they suffocated me. Sarah and my roommate, Mia, saw through the fog I was in. One night, over pizza at our apartment, Sarah pulled up Ethan's ex-profile. "Look at this, Lily," she said, pointing to a post. "Real love means never saying no." It had dozens of likes, mostly from women. My stomach churned. Mia chimed in. "He's got you on a leash, girl. You're not his girlfriend. You're his puppet." I laughed it off, but their words stuck like a splinter I couldn't ignore. Ethan's tactics grew bolder. If I resisted meeting him, he'd turn cold, sending messages that cut deep. "Guess you don't care about me," he'd text, followed by silence that felt like punishment. I'd panic, imagining him moving on, and I'd rush to his place to fix things. Once there, he'd be all smiles, pulling me into his arms, whispering how much he needed me. It was a cycle, sweet 1 minute, manipulative the next, and I was trapped in it. One evening, I was exhausted from a double shift at my coffee shop job. Ethan texted, begging me to come over. "I had a rough day, Lily. Only you can make it better." I said I couldn't, citing work. His reply was instant. "Wow, I thought you were different." My chest tightened. I called Sarah, my voice shaky. "He's mad again. Should I go?" She didn't hesitate. "No, Lily, he's playing you. Stay home." For once I listened, but the guilt gnawed at me all night. The next day, Ethan's texts were a storm. He sent paragraphs, alternating between love and anger, saying I made him feel alive but also abandoned. "You're breaking me, Lily," he wrote. I felt sick, torn between wanting to please him and knowing Sarah was right. I showed Mia the messages, and her face hardened. "This guy's a textbook manipulator. You need to cut him off." But cutting him off felt impossible. His words had woven a web around my heart, and every attempt to pull away made me feel like I was betraying him. By August, Ethan's demands were constant. He'd call late at night, his voice soft but insistent, asking me to meet him at his gym or his apartment. If I hesitated, he'd bribe me with promises of the best night ever, making it sound like I'd regret saying no. I started lying to Sarah and Mia, saying I was studying when I was really with him. I hated myself for it, but Ethan's approval felt like oxygen, and I was gasping for air. One night I was at his place, the air thick with weed smoke. He leaned in, his eyes intense. "You're mine, Lily," he said, his hand gripping mine a little too tightly. For the first time, I felt a flicker of fear. His words weren't sweet anymore, they were possessive, like he owned me. I pulled away, mumbling an excuse about work. His smile faded, and he grabbed his phone, typing furiously. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with a new ex-post from him. "Some people don't know loyalty." It was aimed at me, and it stung like a slap. Sarah called me the next morning, furious. "I saw his post, Lily. He's trying to shame you publicly. This isn't love, it's control." Her words were a wake-up call, but I was still tangled in Ethan's web. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers. But the thought of losing him, of facing that cold silence again, kept me silent. I was drowning in his manipulation and the shore felt so far away. The breaking point came in late August, when the Chicago heat was suffocating and my patience was paper thin. Ethan's demands had reached a fever pitch, his texts a constant drumbeat of need. "I can't sleep without you, Lily," he'd write at 3 a.m., followed by, "You're letting me down." I was exhausted, torn between his pull and my own sanity. Sarah and Mia had staged an intervention the week before, showing me articles on emotional manipulation. "He's gaslighting you," Mia said, her voice firm. "You're not his therapist." Their words were a lifeline, but Ethan's grip was still tight. "One night," he called, his voice dripping with urgency. "Come over, Lily, I need you. It's important." I was bone-tired, my shift at the coffee shop running late. "I can't, Ethan, I'm wiped." His tone shifted, sharp and cold. "You always have an excuse. If you cared, you'd be here." My heart sank, the familiar guilt creeping in. But something snapped. I was done being his pawn. I drove to his apartment, not to cave, but to end it. My hands shook as I parked, Sarah's voice echoing in my head. "You're stronger than his games." Ethan opened the door, his smile smug like he'd won again. "Knew you'd come," he said, pulling me inside. The room smelled of weed and stale beer, his gym equipment cluttering the space. I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. "We need to talk." His face darkened. "Talk? You're here, aren't you?" I shook my head, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "No, Ethan, I'm done. You don't get to control me anymore." He laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Control? I'm just showing you I care. No one else will love you like this." His words stung, but I saw them for what they were. A trap. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my wrist, his grip tight. "You're not walking out," he said, his eyes flashing with anger. Fear spiked through me, but I yanked my arm free, my voice rising. "Let go, Ethan, it's over." He stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "You'll regret this," he hissed, his words laced with venom. My heart pounded, but I held my ground, fueled by months of suppressed rage. I stormed out, his shouts echoing behind me. "You need me, Lily. You'll come crawling back." I didn't look back, didn't stop until I was in my car, tears streaming down my face. My phone buzzed with his texts, apologies mixed with insults, a desperate bid to pull me back. I blocked his number, my hands trembling but my heart lighter. For the first time in months, I felt free. The next day, Sarah and Mia were waiting at my apartment, their faces a mix of relief and worry. I showed them Ethan's final X post. "Some people don't deserve loyalty." It was public, a jab meant to hurt me. But it backfired. Friends messaged me asking if I was okay, sharing their own stories of Ethan's manipulative ways. One girl, Emma, revealed he'd done the same to her, love-bombed her, then guilt-tripped her into submission. I wasn't alone. I reported his post on X, citing harassment, and it was taken down. Sarah helped me change my locks just in case. Mia suggested therapy, and I started seeing a counselor to unpack the damage Ethan had done. His manipulation had left scars, doubt, guilt, a fear of trusting again. But facing him that night, walking away despite his threats, was a victory. I'd reclaimed my voice, my power. The weeks that followed were hard. Ethan tried reaching me through mutual friends, sending messages that veered from pleading to cruel. I stayed strong, leaning on Sarah and Mia, who reminded me I was enough without him. I learned to spot red flags, love bombing, guilt tripping, possessiveness, and vowed never to ignore them again. Ethan's shadow lingered, but it was fading, replaced by a strength I didn't know I had. Months later, I'm still healing, but I'm not the same Lily who fell for Ethan's lies. His manipulation changed me, left scars I'm still learning to carry. I see now how he used my loneliness, my need for validation to trap me in his web. I'll never let sweet words blind me again. Every day I'm rebuilding, trusting myself, setting boundaries, listening to my gut. Sarah and Mia are my anchors. Their support a reminder that real love doesn't demand or control. Therapy's helping me untangle the guilt and doubt Ethan planted, teaching me to spot manipulators before they get close. I've shared my story on X anonymously, and the responses, other women, other survivors, have shown me I'm not alone. Ethan's out there, probably spinning his web around someone new, but I'm free. I learned a hard lesson that summer. Love shouldn't feel like a cage. If someone's words make you question your worth, run. Trust your instincts. They're louder than any charm. Stay safe because no one's worth losing yourself for. You've just listened to 10 chilling stories, but the truth is they don't end here. These stories are not isolated. They ripple through time and place, always waiting for the next curious listener to stumble upon them. You might feel the silence around you shift as you sit alone tonight, or hear an unexpected creak that wasn't there before. It's not your imagination, it's the stories reaching back to you. And once you've opened this door, it doesn't close easily. What you've heard tonight? It's just the beginning. There are more stories. Stories even darker, even more terrifying. So if you're ready to face what others refuse to speak of, subscribe. Stay tuned for more. And remember, in the world we live in, the scariest things are the ones no one wants to talk about.